The film starts in Russia, where a group of three sit by the stream, partaking in their time. The most youthful of them, Sergei Alyoshkov, brags to his senior sibling and mother about him being on top of a tree when unexpectedly German warrior jets saw over. The mother asked her children to rapidly conceal in the brambles. However, the 6-year-old claims he isn't terrified and hits the stream with a slingshot. Amazingly, he figures out how to stir things up around town and detonate them. Yet, when he glances around, his family is no more. Sergei awakens terrified from the fantasy and requires his MOM. All of a sudden, someone thumps on his entryway. Expecting it is his MOM, he runs towards it. However, a neighbor lady comes in overreacting. She expresses gratitude toward God for keeping him alive and illuminates him that his MOM and sibling are dead. The young man can't understand what she is talking about and needs to remain in the house to hang tight for his MOM. The lady lets him know that the Germans have gone after them and that he ought to take off. All at once, a few troopers approach their home. The lady makes Sergei run through the window, but is shot dead before she can go along with him. The little 6-year-old is presently all alone, with no loved ones. As Sergei takes her from the house, he sees his entire area consuming behind him. He requires his MOM to no end and takes off from that point. In the wake of running for some time, he winds up in the center of the forest. The young child starts to require his MOM to come and get him since he is lost. That evening, he remains in the wilderness. The next morning, we see him hydrate from a waterway when the aggressors approach his direction. Sergei, realizing that they are hazardous, rapidly conceals inside a tree's underlying foundations. He is surprised when a snake comes close by, but doesn't express a word or take off. Sergei is more terrified of the troopers than of the snake. The warriors eat by the stream and disappear, after which Sergei takes their extra food and gobbles it up for the evening. Notwithstanding, before the day's over, the young man is depleted. He hasn't had a legitimate feast in 2 days and has been strolling with no objective. He tumbles down as he limps but doesn't quit strolling. While on his way, he sees wild berries and gobbles them up. Yet all of a sudden, a blast happens behind him, overwhelming him. The kid gets dazed and starts to fantasize about someone coming behind him. In any case, even in such circumstances, he stands courageous and tells the individual he has a rifle and isn't frightened. He limps forward but falls oblivious sooner or later. While he is sleeping, 2 fighters approach him. The scene slices to the Russian Armed Force base, where Commandant Kuznetsov sits tight for his watch fighters. They come in with the young child who is harmed and frail. At the point when the troopers guarantee they are his ally, the young man opens up and presents himself. The troopers chuckle when the youngster shakes his hand with the commandant, proposing he present himself as well. The troopers feel tender with the young child and circle him around. They make him hydrate and feed him. Indeed, even the generally chilly commandant deals with the youngster. A medical caretaker named Katia dresses Sergei's injuries and is enchanted by his character as well. The youngster requests that she draw a tank on his injuries since he needs to be a trooper when he grows up. Indeed, even the harmed officers converse with the youngster and feel lighter. Sergei is entranced with the authorities' weapon and his group. The administrator also answers every one of the young man's inquiries and allows him to play with his privileged gun subsequent to taking the shots out. Sergei shows him the tank drawn on his stomach and flaunts about being a warrior himself. The kid is recuperating rapidly. The medical caretaker, Katia, requests that the officer let the kid stay with the brigade, but he dissents, asserting that it won't be protected. He needs to send Sergei to a halfway house. The troopers invested all their free energy with Sergei. He is visited by a lot of people over the course of the day. They bring him food sent by their families from a far distance and, surprisingly, let him play with their optics. At some point, a warrior goes to the commandant to request that he let the kid stay with the Legion. The fighters have grown a nearby association with the youngster and consider him their own. His presence takes the heaviness of battle off their mind. Notwithstanding, the leader is determined about sending the kid to the shelter for his own security. The next day, the adversaries assault, and many troopers are harmed. A vehicle comes to get Sergei to take him to the halfway house. The leader informs the youngster and gives him a wooden privilege gun as a gift. The kid thusly embraces him, asserting that he is terrified for the administrator's security. The commandant liquefies in his hug and adjusts his perspective. He requests that Sergei stay with the warriors as his child. That evening, the troopers search for little warrior garments for the young man. They are euphoric to have Sergei stay with them. The commandant awakens Sergei and gives him the garments. He wears them and goes around, seeming to be a genuine warrior. The others begin calling him their little trooper kid. As the youngster goes around, the Germans send off an air assault on the Legion. The troopers rapidly take Sergei to a protected spot and battle the others. The quantity of harmed troopers develops quickly. Sergei needs to make himself valuable, so he carries water to parched troopers. One of them requests that he read a letter sent by his family since he has a wrap over his eyes. The young man needs to help, but doesn't have the foggiest idea how to peruse. He takes the letter and fires, making up the things composed on it, asserting that the trooper's cow is protected back home. At the point when the warrior says he doesn't have a cow, the others advise him to oblige the story and chuckle. He peruses every other person's letters in a similar style and encourages them. In the accompanying scene, we see Katya and the officer talking. The two appear to be drawn to one another, but don't admit their sentiments. Afterward, Sergei lets the commandant know that he is of the organized situation in the brigade and begins presenting himself as one. Nonetheless, the kid then sees one of the fighters' stations obliterated from the attack. The administrator helps him to accept and offer appreciation to the dead officer. The following day, he demands the commandant give him a mission and is given an undertaking to convey the letters among the fighters. He gets done with his responsibility effectively and even makes the troopers dance for him. The next day, Sergei goes somewhat distant from the base with his optics. As he is playing with it, he sees someone's leg moving from inside a pile. He surges back to the brigade and educates the troopers regarding his discoveries. The officers are suspicious but go with the kid in any case. At the point when they arrive near the pile, they are made aware to see two German covert agents stowing away underneath. The covert agents are captured, and the youngster is commended for his knowledge. That evening, the commandant shows Sergei the lawful papers for his adoption. He is currently formally the youngster's dad. Sergei is aware of the commandant's affections for Katya, so to repay his graciousness, he takes him to admit his feelings to her. Yet, the two see her conversing with an alternate man and unjustly assume she is interested in someone else. The base is attacked by the Germans once more. This time, Sergei assists the troopers energetically by providing ammo to the warriors in the forefront. Yet the fighters there order him to return to the shed since it is excessively hazardous outside. At the point when he comes to the shed, he sees the leader and others overreacting because the telephone's association with the colonel is lost. A fighter is shipped off to fix the messed up wires. Sergei follows the trooper and sees he has been lethally injured. He asks the dying trooper how he can fix the wires and does it himself. The connection returns and more soldiers are called. The 6-year-old saves everybody's life. Afterward, we see the authority and Katya talking by the stream. The authority finally admits his affection for her and requests that she be Sergei's MOM. Katya is euphoric, yet before she can say anything, a fighter approaches them and gives the officer a letter, saying they have been dispatched from the base. The next day, every one of the warriors leaves for their new base alongside Sergei. Notwithstanding, en route, they go over a minefield that blows up a portion of their vehicles. The authority is harmed while the group's marksman, who Sergei was close with, passes on in the blast. He cries and embraces the officer. They convey the harmed ones with them and proceed with their journey to their new base. At the point when they finally arrive at the other base, they meet the commandant's chief, the general. He too is dazzled by the youngster's zeal and praises the commandant for having such a brilliant youngster. The next day, their division is awarded a God's flag, as is the kid. He vows to save his country when the general gives him his badge. One evening, their base is attacked brutally, and the authority is caught under the ruins. Sergei sobs for his dad and attempts to save him. He calls for different fighters, who finally bring the administrator out. The following day, Sergei approaches a harmed commandant. His hands were injured while attempting to save the officer. The youngster is now an indistinguishable piece of the team. He doesn't have a family next to them and moves wherever they go in the conflict. The film closes as the regiment is seen moving to another base. A voice in the background narrates that he even participated in the Stalingrad fight and reached Poland with the officers. He is now known as the world's youngest soldier ever, and the amazing story of his boldness is now spread for the entire world to hear.